I was straight up workaholic.
Mm-hmm.
Like my
Mm-hmm.
identity was so connected to what I did for work. And there was a part of me that was always rooted in authenticity. And that's why I kind of always ended up in this state of misalignment. And it's why I ended up working to burnout because there was such it was almost like a chasm in between like how I was showing up and how I actually felt on the inside. There's always a duality. We have like our inner truth,
Mm-hmm.
the version of us that we really are, like
Mm.
at the core. And then we have the person who's showing up in the world, right? The surface level. And there's always going to be a little bit of a difference. That doesn't mean that you're not
Of
being your
course.
authentic self. And I did need a clean break from the corporate setting because I realized how much I was leaning on my job to mean something about me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came to that awareness, I was like, okay, I need a break. In my mind, it was just going to be like a 3 month like break, right? I just need a
Of
clean
course.
break. I need to get back to who I am, go on whatever journey I need to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the intention was always to go back and bring my new whatever learning and awareness to a corporate 9 to 5 setting. And that never happened. I went on a deeper journey than I was expecting. And really, the biggest thing that happened for me when I left the corporate setting, again, with the intention of going back, was reconnecting with my intuition
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that, holy shit, my intuition has been talking to me for so long and I've just literally been ignoring it. And so when I got the firm, like, okay, it's time to step into the shoes of the mentor. Like, you've wanted to be a people leader, a mentor, and a coach for so long, but I had been placing it on this like far off future timeline. Like, I'll do that in 5 years, I'll do that in 10 years. It was like, no, it's time to do that now. And so that's really what brought me to coaching. And now I'm a purpose coach to ambitious women in corporate, some men, mostly women, who are kind of in that position where they're like, okay, God, I've been really putting a lot into my job and
Mm-hmm.
probably not enough into like understanding who am I really? And that's the big question.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. This is your host, Colin Walters, and some conversations just hit home. And I'm walking out of my conversation with purpose coach Jess O'Kane and feeling just so inspired, so energized, and just super real and down to earth. Like some of the words that come to mind when I think about Jess is like authentic, genuine, magnetic, as she would put it, right? Magnetism, authenticity, purpose, driven, mission, vision, like all these things. And so these are some of the topics that we dive into today. Jess was, very similar to me. Like, there's a reason that we connected and vibed is she was a decade plus in corporate sales, corporate marketing, crushed it, hustler, go getter, but then transitioned into a more aligned calling and went off on her own way. And she talks about that journey and how to get from A to B and some of the thought processes and mindsets and actions that she took to actually do it. So if you're thinking about something similar or have thought about it in the past or are thinking about maybe a new trajectory for you and your life, maybe something with career, this episode is super powerful. Jess is also she created such a safe space where I actually shared some things that I've never shared on a public platform. And so, I'm about to take sabbatical and I have a one-way ticket booked to Bali here in under 3 weeks. And I put in my notice at work a couple weeks ago and I open up about this. I had not shared it yet. I also opened up about some personal things from last year, kind of my own journey. And so this conversation was super powerful, extremely vulnerable at times, but also very value driven to help you address some things going on internally. And, our goal is to help you walk away with some tools and strategies, mindsets, things that are going to help you get to your most authentic, genuine, and aligned version of yourself. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here we go with an amazing interview and conversation with Jess O'Kane. All right. Here we go. Jessica O'Kane, welcome to the Seeds of Success podcast. It's very nice to have you on the show.
Colin Walters, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And for those that are maybe new to Jessica and her content here. Basically, there was like 8 different words that you had in your LinkedIn profile, which is like, wow, this girl looks like my soul sister here. And so we reached out, got connected. When we're talking purpose, mission, yoga, wellness, healing, growth, all the things. So that's what we're going to be here to talk about today.
Mm.
I can definitely let you talk about the details, but just for the high level, everybody, basically 10 plus years in sales and marketing for Jessica, hustler, killer, but also like super rooted in authenticity and purpose and genuine connection and healing and growth and purpose for people. And so here we are with Jessica as the purpose coach. And so I'm just going to go ahead and maybe hand the floor over to you, Jessica, if you want to do any sort of other introduction or, kind of what,
Yeah.
what feels right for you right now.
Love that. Thank you. That was such a beautiful, succinct way of putting it. And I think when we initially connected on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
it's so funny on LinkedIn, right? Like you just see professional experience. It's so buttoned up. It's so funny that I'm literally wearing a white button-up shirt, but it is unbuttoned. So I immediately saw like you were killing it in sales. I think you had hit President's Club or something. And I'm like, man, this guy is me like 2 years
I thought
ago.
the same thing with
Yeah. And
you.
I think that's why we really jived kind of off the
Mhm.
bat. And I think a lot of people kind of get it twisted a little bit that you can't be super rooted in authenticity and you can't really be navigating this
Mm.
expansive spiritual or personal discovery journey while also like killing it in your corporate 9 to 5, for example. And to be honest, Colin, in my case, that is kind of true because I was like straight up workaholic.
Mhm.
Like my
Mhm.
identity was so connected to what I did for work. And there was a part of me that was always rooted in authenticity. And that's why I kind of always ended up in this state of misalignment. And it's why I ended up working to burnout because there was such it was almost like a chasm in between like how I was showing up and how I actually felt on the inside. And I eventually probably will touch a little bit on human design, but that really holds true with how there's always a duality. We have like our inner truth,
Mhm.
the version of us that we really are, like
Mm.
at the core. And then we have the person who's showing up in the world, right? The surface level. And there's always going to be a little bit of a difference. That doesn't mean that you're not
Of
being your
course.
authentic self.
Of course.
There is a duality. That's just part of the human condition.
Mhm.
And yeah, I did need a clean break from the corporate setting because I realized how much I was leaning on my job to mean something about me. And
Mhm.
when I came to that awareness, I was like, okay, I need a break. In my mind, it was just going to be like a 3 month like break, right? I just need a
Of
clean
course.
break. I need to get back to who I am, go on whatever journey I need to go on.
Mhm.
And then the intention was always to go back and bring my new whatever learning and awareness to a corporate 9 to 5 setting. And that never happened.
Mhm.
As it turns out, I went on a deeper journey than I was expecting. And in working with my own coaches, and really the biggest thing that happened for me when I left the corporate setting, again with the intention of going back, was reconnecting with my intuition
Mhm.
and realizing that holy shit, my intuition has been talking to me for so long and I've just literally been ignoring it. And so when I got the firm like, okay, it's time to step into the shoes of the mentor. Like you've wanted to be a people leader, a mentor, and a coach for so long, but I had been placing it on this like far off future timeline. Like, I'll do that in 5 years, I'll do that in 10 years. It was like, no, it's time to do that now. And so that's really what brought me to coaching. And now I'm a purpose coach to ambitious women in corporate. Some men, mostly women, who are kind of in that position where they're like, okay, God, I've been really putting a lot into my job and
Mhm.
probably not enough into like understanding who am I really? And that's the big question. That is the big question.
That question is how do I how scary, yes, I think for a lot of people, right? Because in your episode with Kendra Fox, that was
Mm.
something that I literally pulled over the car to jot that down
Oh,
because
wow.
there was 2 questions and that was the second. And the first was, who are you? And then the second was, but who are you really? And I was
Mm.
like, oh shit. And I pulled over And I texted that to my coach and therapist and was like, yo, just a couple bullet points to think about because like for
Mhm.
you, Jessica, how like how does that question resonate with you? Or like what did that mean in your journey for you? And also what did you do when you answered that question?
Oh my gosh, I don't think I've fully answered it, and I think
Mm,
that's part
it's
of
always
this.
evolving.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And yeah, when that question did scare me for a long
Hmm.
time because I was afraid that the answer was going to be so different from the version of me that I was,
Mm,
or like it was going to be so different from the life that I had built for
hmm.
myself.
Hmm.
And yeah, for those of you
Oof.
listening, I do have a
Oof.
I do have a podcast. That's what Colin's talking about, the Purpose
Hmm.
Uprising podcast. And yeah, when I first asked that question, I think what happened naturally is first, the who am I was, of course, I am an ambitious, like sales
Mm,
manager. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a partner. Like I'm someone who's deeply compassionate. I have a lot of energy. I love this, I love that. And it's like, okay, that's all this surface level stuff.
hmm.
Like that's how you are perhaps seen.
Almost like
But
identity in the world,
exactly.
in the
Yeah.
physical world.
Yeah, if you're talking mindfulness and yoga, which
Hmm.
like is rooted for us, it's like that's the ego,
Mm,
right? It's the ego.
mm,
And the cool thing about that is ego is not a bad thing. It's not going anywhere. Like that's
right.
actually the fun part of human existence is we get to play with that. You can change that if you want. So the who are you really goes down to the parts that you can't change. The parts that like who are you really? That is the original essence. That's the you that was on full display when you were 3 or 4 years old, like rolling around in the muck, not a care in the world, not worrying about
That's the
what someone
best.
thinks about you, right? Like honestly, when you look, there's so much of my work, and it's kind of sneaky. There's so much inner child healing because
Hmm.
truly you were rooted
Mm,
in your purpose and your authenticity when
mm,
you were a child before the world got to you,
right.
right? So yeah, I think
Mm,
I'm still on the journey of answering that question. And every day I feel like I get a little bit deeper where there's a level of disconnection from who I am as I present because I realize like not that it's a facade, but that it is a game. Like
hmm.
I actually get to be whoever I want to be. And if I want to change my mind tomorrow that I want to be something completely different, I mean, I get to be. We all get to be. And I think that's something I really struggled with because when I was in corporate, killing it in sales or as a senior manager on a sales development team on the path to being
Hmm.
a department head, it was like, well, that's the linear me. I can't choose to be anything different because then it's going to confuse everyone. And what if I don't get the promotion and blah, 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 blah. Do you see? Like,
Mm.
so when I started answering that question, it really did kind of set me free from all of the ways that I thought I was
Ooh.
expected to
Hmm.
show up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It almost like released attachment or released expectation of what, the physical world or people in it, expect of you, at least in your role or your job, right? Because it's just
Yeah.
something that we do, right? It doesn't make us who we
Yes.
are.
Exactly. That's why it was such a such a what's the word I'm looking for? Like it was a scary leap to
Mm,
go from top AE, like sales manager, really. Like I was killing it in my job. I had a great job and I loved it. I worked with amazing people. Like there's not much there aren't many bad things I can say about it. It wasn't the
mm,
job, but it
same.
was a scary leap for me to go from who I thought I was supposed to be to all of a sudden I'm a purpose coach. What?
Hmm.
Pardon? Like
Hmm.
that doesn't make sense, right? But it's not again, I had to realize like I am not what I do. Like what I do is I get to decide what I do.
Mm,
I am who I am, and that's a question I'm still answering. But it was a really difficult thing for me to like completely detach from work. And then when I launched my business as a purpose coach, I mean, damn straight, I still brought my corporate workaholic habits to
of
my
course.
job as a purpose coach. Yes,
So what made
that
you
was part of the
successful? It's
experiment.
yeah.
Yes, it is. And now I'm realizing what makes me deeply successful. I
Hmm.
have a whole different definition of success now, which is kind of a perfect topic for the Seeds of Success podcast. But I kind of love, I want to hold a moment of space for you because I know that you're kind of in that moment right now where you're
Hmm.
starting to detach from the professional brand, the
Uh-huh.
professional surface
Hmm.
identity. And maybe you've been on this journey. I don't know if this is what led to you starting to detach from it, but yeah, I want to hold space a little bit because I know this is why you and I get along so well.
I appreciate you turning it back over. And there's so much behind everything that you said that I just love and resonate with. And and learning more about your story, that's why I was even so much more excited to talk to you because we have such a similar path, or like
Mm.
it's almost like I'm now, joining your path is kind of what it feels like. Because to your point, and I'm excited to share this openly and publicly for the first time, is I just put in my notice at work like a week and a
Mm.
half ago, and I bought a one-way ticket across the world to Bali. And I don't know what this journey is going to look like and how it's going to unfold, but I'm so excited to dive into some of those things that you just mentioned, like fear of the unknown and
Yeah.
uncertainty, right? And how I think about your position is with you leaving a very successful corporate sales role and having killed it and crushed it. And I know that you loved your management role when you were leading the team of SDRs, and like there's meaning in that, but like ultimately going into another realm of something that you have not done in your life and leaving behind this, past decade that is, for the most part safe and comfortable, at least if it's anything like my experience. I know that things will continue to go well. I kind of see where my trajectory is going to be, but also I feel like, for where we're at in our lives, it's very important to step off of this ladder, get a new vantage point of life, right? Take a 30,000-foot view and then decide what's next. Do I want to stay on that path? Is there another path waiting for me? Going back to that question of who am I really, I think will be the primary driving force of where this next path leads. And, it's I mean, it's kind of fun to talk about because this is something I've thought about for over the last decade. Like,
Hmm.
just and I always loved my, I've always loved like my tech sales and career and growth, and always super driven, have loved it. In the back of my mind, I've always had this idea, this bucket list item, this not even bucket list item, just a mission to go do something like this, and specifically buy a one-way ticket across the world and live out of a backpack for a year plus. So that's kind of the journey that I'm on. So it's really encouraging to see that you have been there, thought these similar things, and I think that it's important and very healthy to question these things too, right? And question, is this the path that I want to be on and want to stay on? If like hell yeah, then keep doing it. If it's
Yeah.
like I'm not quite sure, I think that alone is enough to take a step off, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I just that's that's basically a big lesson that I'm learning right now as
Hmm.
maybe I'll do a bit of an intro to human design because that's literally the lesson
Ooh,
that I'm
you
learning
got me on a
about my
train here.
human
By the
design.
way,
I know.
8:28 p.m. I went to my shed yesterday and I hunted through my birth all these documents and I found my birth certificate and
Yeah.
8:28. So
Okay.
and I
So
redid it.
I
I redid it.
right because we had 8:30 when we initially computed your
Exactly.
chart. That's so funny. I wonder if anything like substantial changed with 2 minutes. I'm
I
actually really
couldn't tell with
interested
like the
to
channels and everything. I
I'll have to
briefly glanced at it, but yeah.
I'll look at that after.
All right,
Yeah,
human
so
design.
I'm not a human design expert by any means. I
Mhm.
would say I'm like an amateur. I like that word. I'm an amateur. Okay.
I love it. A lot to
Self-taught,
learn.
also, yeah, so much to learn,
Hmm.
like
It's
anything.
exciting.
But for anyone who's new to human design is basically the science of differentiation. So it takes a lot of like old Eastern philosophies and theology. So it blends things like astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, the chakra system, all of that.
Hmm.
And it blends it with modern science like quantum physics and modern biochemistry, which for me as a science background was like what got me hooked.
So dope.
Because yeah, I used to have a hard
Yeah.
time like buying into astrology, for
Me too. I
example.
was like, astrology. No, I like, yeah, I'm trying to
Yeah,
close this deal. Like, can't,
exactly,
And now I'm
exactly.
like, whoa. life.
I know, I know. And so
Mhm.
human design, science of differentiation, it basically gives you the blueprint for how your energy is meant to move in the world. And you can
Hmm.
go online and compute your chart like for free anywhere. I'll give Colin a link to drop into the show notes.
Cool.
Yeah. So the maybe three or four things that you really want to pay attention to, because if you're new to human design and you compute your chart, you have to know the time that you were born. It has to do with like where basically the energetic field when you came into the world. And once you compute your
Oh.
chart, it is very overwhelming.
Mhm.
It's
Mm.
like, what the hell am I looking at? All these shapes and these numbers, and don't worry about that. All you need to worry about is your energy type, your
Mhm.
strategy, and your inner authority.
Mhm.
Bonus if you go into your profile, but
Mhm.
energy type, strategy, and inner authority. And so I'm a manifesting generator. That's my energy type. Colin is a
Yeah, it
projector.
is. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
So manifesting generator, classic like signature of a Gen is being multi-passionate. But where I'm going with what you just said that like really
Mhm.
lit something up for me was my strategy is to wait to respond. And now I've gone in this whole loop. I don't even know what you said that sparked something.
Mhm.
I think you were talking about like how you had this very specific idea. Oh, and if it lights you up, what
Mhm.
you said that put me on this path of talking about human design was even if you're like yeah, no, that's enough to know that like it's a no, like
Right.
that you want it to be like a
Right.
full yes.
Mhm.
And for me, as a sacral generator, or manifesting generator, sacral is my inner authority. Colin is self projected. We won't go
Mhm.
into all the details of what that means. But I am here to experience life and to listen to my sacral hits. So, sacral is connected to your gut. So, it's either a fuck yes, like a
Mhm.
full body, like
Mhm.
yes. For me, whenever it happens, it's like a obviously like that's what it feels like
Like, of
in
course.
my body.
No
Of
doubt.
course,
No brainer.
obviously, yeah. And then anything else, if it's like a I need to think about it, it's a no.
Mhm.
It's a no.
Mhm.
And I've needed to learn this, and I still am. And funny enough, I am here sitting at the table in my parents' home.
You and
I'm
I
like,
both, girl.
yeah,
You and I both.
I'm at my parents' home right now. I live on the east coast of Canada. I'm far from family, and I
Mm.
came here for the passing of a loved one. It's been a
Mhm.
beautiful celebration of life, and I like to make the most of my time with family when I'm visiting. So I'm like in my parents' house, and I love my family. I'm one of four kids, but holy shit, do they trigger me? Right? They
Mm.
trigger all the things,
And
everything,
they know
and
how.
but I'm so grateful. Like
Mm.
it reminds me that I still have work to do. The
Totally.
amount of times that my family will like ask something of me, or whenever I'm here, I try to quote unquote make the most of it, right? I
Mhm.
want to see everyone. I want to make
Mhm.
all the plans. My sacral doesn't want to do that.
Mhm.
I
There's
don't
so
want
much
to, I don't,
resistance to it.
yeah. Like, what was it the other day? My parents wanting to go play tennis. And I did. I went. I played tennis with them. It was epic. I loved it. My parents are fit and athletic. But like the amount of times that they're like, okay, we're going to go and do this after. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. This
Mhm.
is new for me to be
Mhm.
like, guys, I actually need to go and meditate for an hour and just
Mhm.
be like separate. But I'm so used to just saying, yeah, yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do this. Yep, I'll go see that person. And then I'm like exhausted and I'm
Right.
burnt out in a whole nother way.
Right.
So I love these moments where I'm like, I'm being triggered by my family, but I'm grateful
Mhm.
because I'm like, oh, this is my opportunity to walk the walk.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
I'm learning how my energy moves and where I'm prone to just like doing something for the sake of doing it. I'm like, no, I'm not here for that anymore. My energy is not available for that. And yeah, bless my family. They've witnessed me on all of these journeys. I'm like the little black sheep that just goes off and does their own thing. Everyone's like, yep, that's it.
But they
Just
probably know
needs to
that
go
to be you.
meditate.
Exactly.
They
And
do.
they accept that and love
And
that about you. Can imagine.
yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
anyway, there's my little roundabout way of even learning like where I might be out of alignment because of the identity that I used to be in, that my family is used to me being. I was the perfect
Mhm.
kid.
Mhm.
I was the perfect kid. I didn't make a lot of noise. I got great grades. I played all the sports. I followed the rules. And sometimes My family still expects me to be that little girl
Mm,
that is the pleaser that will do anything, that's like solid, stable. And then when I show up now, the purpose coach into human design, into meditation and
mm-hmm,
mindfulness, very like connected to who I really am. And I'm like not fully energized all the time, not pleasing all the time. And every once in a while, it's funny, my dad will be like, Jess, are you okay? Because I'm
mm-hmm,
not showing up as the version of me that he's
mm-hmm.
used to me
Mm-hmm.
showing up as. And I'm like, yeah, I'm great. I'm great.
And I
I
think
just,
it makes total sense too, because they're so used, they there's this gap essentially where they haven't seen you during that transformation phase or during a
yeah,
part of your transformation journey. And what I'm curious about is, did you feel, did you feel like, so this person that you are now, were
yeah.
you suppressing any of this when you were in corporate sales specifically or in
Mm,
corporate type setting, right? For a decade, like was part of it showing up every now and then, but then you would like maybe, call it meditate for 2 minutes between a call or something. And you're
yeah,
like, oh shit, now we got to like, jump back in or, go on this, transformation journey between the hours of 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, because that's when you
yeah,
can fit it in. And then it's, wake up for a 7 a.m. call the next day, and then it's the weekend, and then next thing you know, a year's passed, and 3 years, and 5 years.
yeah.
So, like, how do you think about who you were then to who you are now, and how that has evolved
Mm.
after taking that jump to do this on your own?
Yeah, you just described it so well because I thought that it was enough to just be quote unquote doing the work when I had
Mm-hmm.
time to.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right.
I meditated every morning.
Oh.
I like did my morning pages.
Uh-huh.
And then it's so funny. I was talking about this, I think on my last podcast episode, where I even have I have two notebooks always. This is my morning pages notebook.
Mm.
And then I've got like my
Artist's
work
way.
notebook.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
I
Yes,
got
the
mine right
artist
here.
way. Yeah, love it.
Yep.
So my yeah, I would write my morning pages. I would get up at the crack of dawn. I would write for
Mm-hmm.
45 minutes and then I would close my
Mm.
journal and it was as if like I was closing it and I was going right back to burnt out corporate chess
It's
mode.
crazy. Yeah, I get it.
And it's so interesting because I've looked back at some old journal entries and I really knew what was up. I really knew. I knew
Mhm.
what was up. Like I had journaled 3 years ago that I wanted to do yoga every day. I wanted to meditate for an hour every day. I wanted to coach full time and live on a beach. I think what I wrote was yoga daily, coaching full time, live by a beach. That's the dream.
Mm.
And then it was like I wrote it on a Wednesday or something. So I know for a fact I closed that journaling session and I went right to work
I
and I forgot
love
about
that
it.
it's on the Wednesday. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Mid-work
yeah.
week. Yep.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. So now I'm rereading this like a couple weeks ago and I'm
Mhm.
like, damn, I'm coaching full time. I'm doing yoga every day. I'm now a certified yoga teacher. I don't live on a beach, but that's something to look forward to.
It's coming.
And it's so wild that we know. Like, even you said that booking this one way ticket across the world, very specific, right?
Hmm.
For you, it's very specific, but it's been on your mind for almost a decade.
Hmm.
So I think most people, and I hope whoever's listening to this kind of has this little aha moment that there is something that you're already aware of. Maybe you've journaled about it, you have glimmers of it, and the truth is, we are in resistance to those things for a lot of the time.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're in resistance to it because we're just not ready. But I, I have a theory, and I think it's more than a theory. I think it's actually real that like part of the human condition is that we tend to hold on to things for just too long.
Mm.
Like I held on to my corporate role and my corporate identity after it had already served its purpose because to use your words, it felt safe,
Hmm.
right? It felt safe. But the truth is, and this took me a really long time to get to this being the truth, that the safety of a corporate job or a corporate paycheck really is an illusion. That's the illusion of safety that we come to get used to. And that really nothing is certain. Nothing.
Hmm.
Like, in fact, if you were to go deeper and we could have a very like left brain logic debate on this, you do not own your corporate paycheck. Like, you don't own it. You
Hmm.
could be the top performing sales rep and maybe the company folds for some reason that you just didn't see coming. Whatever it is, like we think it's so safe because we can lean on something outside of ourselves for payment, for whatever illusion of safety. We can lean on something outside of ourselves. When we realize that real safety comes from within, it
Mm-hmm.
comes from you being so anchored in who you are,
Mm.
in your mission and your vision for your life and for the world, in your sole purpose and your zone of genius. If you are so anchored in those things, you will never not have a job. You will never not have
Mm.
money coming in, for example. That was so I tell me that 3 years ago, I would have been like, that sounds really nice, but like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to work now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, like I said, would close the journal and default right back to the existence that was slowly draining me of my life force. And to be honest, I wrote a lot about being fed up, being burnt out, but I was addicted to being burnt out.
Mm.
My nervous
Oh, that's
system
interesting.
was so used to being in that state of total drain
Mm-hmm.
that, I mean, when we
That if
talk
it
about
wasn't,
safe,
it's like,
exactly,
uh-oh, something's
it
wrong.
felt unfamiliar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So when I would be in meditation, it's like, yeah, it felt great for the 10 or 15 minutes that I would do it. And then I would leave and it was like an elastic band effect.
Mm-hmm.
I would default right back to all of the behaviors that I would complain about,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't add up, but it does. That's why so many people end up staying stuck in cycles, whether you're stuck in a job, perhaps it's a habitual pattern of behaviors. Maybe it's relationships that you end up dating the same like type of person that's just like not
Mm.
serving you, and you're like,
Mm.
why am I attracting these people? It's because you haven't fully learned the lesson. We're like, all of this stuff is continual cycles that we're going to stay in until we fully learn the lesson. And I wasn't ready to learn the lesson. I was like, I thought I was, but I wasn't. I was
Mm.
in resistance to it. And I finally needed to get so fed up and so burnt out where I was like, you know what? I have seen this 2 year cycle play through like 5 times now.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to live in this 2 year cycle again. I'm done. And that's what led me to the kind of moment of awakening where I was like, okay, I finally decided I'm done. Now what?
Mm.
And you brought up the artist way. Yes, the
Mm-hmm.
artist way was a pivotal moment in my journey. But yeah, it's like
Why was it?
I,
Because of the journaling and the truth that you found in the journaling?
yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That in a nutshell, yeah.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
also it fueled my reconnection to my creative
Yeah.
and like my creative self. I've
Yep.
always been very creative, and I
Yep.
was living in my productivity mode,
Mm-hmm.
and to be an like really to be an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking like an artist doesn't necessarily need to be someone who's holding a paintbrush, which it's funny. That's actually a painting that I did. My parents have it on the wall, classic. But to be in a state of creation, you need to also be in a state of surrender and a state of receiving.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you're creating from a place of I need to do it perfectly. It needs to be, I'm doing paint by numbers because it needs to be the perfect outcome. I kind of have a little beef with paint by numbers because people think that it's a creative outlet, but it's not. It's projecting our perfectionist like Western values
Mm.
onto what could be such a beautiful like expressive art form. And art is about being in a state of just like blind creation with no attachment to the outcome.
Mm.
But we're so fucking addicted to these picture perfect outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And this all comes back to the addiction to burnout as well, which is like, if I burn out, at least I know I'm making a good paycheck and I am like sealing in my next promotion. And that was the only way that I knew to be successful
Mm.
until I realized I don't want success to mean being burnt out. And something in me, and this came through with the artist way as well, it's like when you just surrender and allow God to work through you, universe to work through you, whatever, because there's a lot of mindfulness and there's a lot of inner child healing and all of these little
Hmm.
there's a lot of sneaky spiritual growth lessons inside of the artist way, which also was a catalyst for me. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, what I am thinking about right now, and thank you for sharing this because it's such a I feel like it's so needed to hear because you mentioned your 2-year cycles,
Yeah.
right? And I remember that standing out in my head when I listened to your story was like it's super exciting at first, and then it just like slowly wanes down almost until
Yeah.
that 2-year mark where you're like, okay, what now? Right. But
Mm-hmm.
then it's like you want to stay with what you know, right? Because it's also like something that you continue to improve on and you get better at. And then you make a little bit more money. You hear the golden handcuffs all the time
Yeah.
in the corporate world, which I think is super, super relevant.
It
Uh,
is. Yeah.
you also, what I'm curious about is earlier in the show, you mentioned that you decided to go step into the shoes. And I think when you made that transition and what I think might be interesting for the audience, because as we're on this topic of letting go
Yeah.
and shedding the old, creating space for the new, being open to what might be possible for the new, actually doing something about these dreams and visions that we've thought about or felt for a very long time. I think, whether it's a job change or not, I think a lot of people resonate with the fact of like, holy shit, I've thought about this thing forever. When is the time to actually go do something about it? So
Yeah.
my question to you is like, how did you know those shoes were in front of you to step out of the corporate shoes and into these new shoes? And what did that look like for you? What was that transition period? How did you
Mm.
know? And then what did you do? That like
Yeah.
I'm very curious about that.
I love that question. I think how I knew. So, yeah, to give a little bit of a timeline and maybe a bit more context around the 2 year cycle, as you introduced me with 10 years in marketing, sales, and sales leadership, it really was like I was in
Mm-hmm.
2 year stints where I spent 2 years in a job as a marketing manager for a manufacturing company. And then I was like, okay, that one's obvious. Like
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing is not my
Served
thing.
its purpose.
Served its purpose. It was my job right out of my MBA.
For sure.
And then I went to Africa.
Badass.
I worked, I know it was one of the
Badass.
most, that is a moment where
So
I was
sick.
working as a marketing advisor in Ghana where I felt who I really was in
Mm,
that little like short
mm.
stint of my journey. And that was
Oof.
definitely a
Oof.
catalyst
Oh, how
for
I feel every
me.
time I travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, thumbs up for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. No, that was really interesting because I was also cut off from all of the like surface level stuff. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
too hot to wear makeup or to like worry about my
Mm-hmm.
hair or even really what I was wearing. And so I kind of like literally
Mm,
shed all of these superficial things that I would typically lean on to express myself or to show up and look a certain way. And yeah, I was working with local youth under 30 who were aspiring entrepreneurs or had a business and like they didn't know who I was.
mm,
They didn't care who I was. They looked at me as a marketing expert to help them with their business plans and that's what they
mm-hmm.
knew me for. And I became really close with some of these people and it was a reminder of oh, like people resonate and connect with me for that like for actually this version of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like not the version with all the bells and whistles. Anyway, came back from Africa, worked 2 years as a marketing manager for another company and then moved into sales. Crushed it, did that for 2 years, obviously burnt out.
Yeah.
Classic. And I was like, all right, I'm ready for management. Then I managed a team of SDRs for 2 years. So it really was a 2 year
Mm-hmm.
cycle where I kept thinking, maybe this will make me happy. Maybe this
Mm,
will make me feel fulfilled. Maybe finally I'll find like the spark that I've been waiting to feel. And so the knowing that there were these shoes to fill I started having this awareness at a deeper level when I was practicing the artist way curriculum. So my now husband and I booked this 2 week trip to Europe. This is while I was working as a senior manager on a sales development team. So we booked this 2 week trip to Europe. It was magical. It was beautiful. I made sure to set it up in a way that like I was completely off Like I delegated to
Mm.
my team, everything was taken care of.
It's
I
the
was
best.
not on Slack. Yeah, it was
The
really
best.
beautiful. And that's where I started reading The Artist's Way, and it was kind of blowing my mind. And I came home and
Mm.
I decided this is not going to be another one of those times where I have like this beautiful moment of awareness and I close it and I forget about it. So I kept up with the work and I started to detach more because in The Artist's Way, there's a lot of messaging around detachment and not making your work mean something about you. And so I started to play with that. And I made sure not to log in to Slack in the
Mm-hmm.
evenings and instead to paint or to sketch.
Mm.
And it just felt so beautiful. And eventually that turned into work where I was time blocking time to be artistic and creative. And all of a sudden I was like squeezing it in. And that didn't feel right. So
Felt
I wanted
forced.
to it felt
Mm-hmm.
forced. And the morning pages were kind of my saving grace because they were like my non-negotiable. It was the first
Mm.
thing I did upon waking up. And that's where some of these glimmers started to come through, where I was like writing about these things. I had never really admitted to myself, at least for a long time, that I was really missing yoga and I wanted to
Mm.
do it regularly. And that even coaching, that was something I never considered myself a coach. People would always tell me, Jess, you would be such a good therapist. Like, I don't know why I just said that to you. You're such a good listener. Like, and I'd
Mm.
be like, yeah, thanks. Maybe I will be a therapist one
Mm-hmm.
day. Um, and anyway, I would always picture myself as a consultant, or like someone that could go in and high level kind of see what wasn't working, give whoever like the strategy that they needed to implement to fix it, and I could
Yep.
leave because I had this idea that I was burning out because I was too invested. I was investing myself too deeply into things. Anyway, finally, someone said to me, Jess, have you ever thought about coaching? And there's that big sacral hit where
Mm.
I had the full body, like, yeah, obviously. Like, no, I haven't seriously thought about coaching, but that makes complete sense. And I
Mm-hmm.
had the same reaction when someone
Mm-hmm.
said, Jess, you should do an MBA after I'd just done my chemistry degree. And I was like, I'm not going to med school. That was always the plan because I don't even like blood. What the fuck am I going to do in med school
Mm-hmm.
not liking blood? That's not a thing. I was like, what am I going to do? And someone
Wouldn't
said, Jess,
recommend.
have you thought about
Mm.
doing an MBA? And I had that full sacral, like,
Mm.
oh, that's so obvious, of course. And so someone said to me, you should be a coach. And I was like, obviously, yeah, I should. So what do I do? Immediately sign up for a coaching certification that's taking place that weekend.
Mm.
I got work to cover half of it. I wrote a memo. Here's how this is going to benefit the team and the department. Here's what I plan on
Badass.
bringing into. Yeah, it was amazing. And I made it
Mm-hmm.
happen really quick. And it was kind of one of those moments where you're like, thanks, universe. Like, thanks for the signs. And this was another thing about The Artist's Way that I started paying attention to these synchronicities that previously I would see something, I'd be like, oh, that's too good to be true, leave it. But when
Mm.
we get these signs, like synchronicities, like that's a really beautiful thing. And I never really thought about, I always thought of these things as coincidences, right? There are no
Mm.
coincidences.
I don't believe so.
No. And I used to, and I no longer do.
I agree.
And that could be a whole conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I did my coaching cert and I had no intention of breaking off, right? It was like this beautiful experiment of what can I bring into my life right now to create the sense of meaning and fulfillment that I'm seeking, that I'm realizing I've been depending on work. And
Mm-hmm.
now I want to find it inside of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the foot off the gas at work a little bit and I just stopped caring so much. And you know what's so funny?
Hmm.
The universe kept sending me signs that no, 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 you can't take your foot off the gas because we're completely shifting the strategy to product led and you need to completely like redesign the outreach strategy. It's like, okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was be like, okay, well, I'm done with that now. Now I'm going to take my foot off the gas again. And it's like, universe again is like, nope, we're completely changing this part of the sales strategy. And like, here's more work on your plate. And I was like,
Of
really?
course.
And then finally, the
Uh-huh.
third big thing where I was like, okay, finally, I'm in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coaching clients on the side, which I'm loving, like on the weeknights. And I'm bringing in all of my like coaching methodology. I'm even bringing in meditation into my one-to-ones with my SDRs. I
So
was
fun.
like grooving and it felt so
Mm-hmm.
good. And then the universe is like, no, no, no. The company's going to do a massive layoff. Half your team is going to be cut and your quota is going up, but your compensation is staying the same. And yeah, here you go. What are you going to do with it? And I realized in that moment, the universe was like, Jess, um, we've been fucking telling you
Mm-hmm.
for 6 months, you are ready. Why are you still here? And I was like, okay, I can't ignore this.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't quit on the spot. I wrote my resignation letter
Mm-hmm.
to see how it would feel in my
Mm-hmm.
body. And as I was
Oh,
writing it,
interesting.
I did. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I had a one-to-one with I'll never forget this. This day, this is big layoff or reorganization, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want to call it. Took everyone by surprise. And
Wow.
yeah, the next day I had my one-to-one with my manager, who's the director of the department. And she like told me, Jess, your quota went up 80%. Bonus is staying the same. Our work is really cut out for us. Gotta tell you, it's looking pretty bleak. I think if you could just hang with me for 1 quarter and we can really like, we can fix this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think create something really amazing from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
And I started crying, which is very unlike me in a work setting. And I started crying, but I was in a state of nervous system regulation, which was very not common for me because I had just gone to see my osteopath that morning. This is where like synchronicities, right? Colin, like you
Mm-hmm.
can't make this shit up. Like I had this appointment with my osteo booked. She's usually booked out months in advance, and I would have made this appointment ages ago. And I happened to have it the morning before I have this one-to-one with my boss. And I'm in such a state of congruency. I'm aligned, my nervous system is regulated. I'm super calm. My boss tells me this on the Zoom call, and I start crying. But the tears are not like uncontrollable. It's not like in fact, I was able to tell her, I have to tell you where these tears are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And I could speak fully like through the tears.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I was like, these aren't tears of frustration. I'm not even angry. I'm grieving. I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually grieving a version of me that would have been chomping at the bit to rebuild this department with you from nothing and who wouldn't have given a shit about the bonus. She would have been so on board, so hungry for this opportunity to create something with you. And that version of me is no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm tearing up a little bit thinking about it because it was the first time that I realized there are past versions of me that are done, that have served their purpose. And it was a really beautiful moment where I was just like, I need to take a moment. We're going to end this one-to-one. I'm going to go home. And I told her this, I'm going to go home because I was in the office. I'm going to go home and I'm going to write my letter of resignation. And if it feels good, I'm going to hand it in tomorrow. And if it doesn't, I'll know that it doesn't and I'll be with you. And she was like, yeah, that sounds totally fair. Like, go do that. And that's when I left and I wrote the letter of resignation. And it felt like I had just like, I don't know, like been released from a prison or something. Like, I felt like a massive weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I felt so much relief. I felt so good. And that's when I knew, okay, this is my moment. I have no plan. And I had been networking my ass off applying to jobs for all this whole time, like thinking that's going to be
Mm-hmm.
the thing that saves me. And the universe had other plans for me. And it was like, Jess, this is actually your moment to stop putting your power and your trust into institutions and start building it inside of yourself.
Wow.
And also I had just hired a coach. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
working with a coach 2 weeks fresh. So all of these things were happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew in that moment I was ready and I could handle this.
Mm-hmm.
I had never been unsuccessful or never like, I'd never really failed at anything in my life. So I needed to anchor in the trust that you're ready. Like you're fine. You can't fuck this up. If you need to find a job, you'll find a job.
Hmm.
But that is really the story of how I knew there were these shoes to fill and how I stepped into it. And it was a really scary moment for for a sec,
Of
but
course.
the fear just dissipated because I was
Hmm.
like, I've never felt so in my body with a decision in my life. I was like, this is what it feels like to listen to your intuition. And it feels incredible. And I did. And I did.
Jess, I've never actually teared up on a podcast ever until now. And when you started tearing up, that's when I started tearing up because like your resignation letter was almost like a saying goodbye to your old self.
Yeah.
And that just hits super hard, and just letting go of your old self can be scary. And
Yeah.
stepping into a new version of you and a new life and one that's, untapped in many ways. And so it's almost like I'm sitting there thinking about your resignation letter and what a powerful exercise because it allowed you to take an action that was not definitive, but also allowed you to go through the experience of feeling how it felt, for what this
Yeah.
potential future might look like if this goes. And then it allowed you to have probably what I would imagine your sacral reaction to it and
Yeah.
your intuitive response of like, does this feel right and aligned or does it not? And it sounds like it probably did. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's obviously a lot of work that has gone into that with the morning pages, Arta's Way, like going super deep and inward, which is such a powerful way to do that. I also take it way back to when you got back from Europe. I think that was such a powerful moment just for the audience listening here, like having this, because we've all gone and taken our trips and traveled or done
Yeah.
something where we're like so fired up. And then we come back home and it can be so easy to just step right back into our rhythm that we're used to and that we're comfortable with. But the fact that you took how you were feeling and continued to implement it and do things daily, right? Because it felt aligned for you at that time. And look at where it led you to, and it's like, if
Yeah.
you like how I take this away is just continuing to do things that feel aligned for you in the moment, without having this grand vision of where it might go. And then it's just like those continue to compound on themselves. And then it brings you to, this almost like inception point of like, it's either, the fork in the road, you're going left with, to try to build this sales team after, for this quarter and then see things through, or is it time? Because there's a
Mm.
lot of work that's being, having been done in the background to get to that point.
Yeah.
Um, that resignation letter though, it's almost like you could write one
Yeah.
for just to yourself for letting go of
Yeah.
who you used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually use a version of that exercise so much actually in my personal work, but also in the work that I do with my clients. There's often a release that comes with writing a letter to a past version of you that you might
Mm,
be holding some resentment toward.
mm,
I didn't even realize that I held a lot of shame and resentment toward like an early 20s version of myself
mm-hmm,
for,
mm-hmm.
we all have
Of
our
course.
moments of yeah.
So many,
And
so many.
when you take a moment and you write a
Scary.
letter to that version of you from a place of gratitude, not a place of because it's very easy to be like to do the writing and for it to still be coming from that place of judgment. But when you shift, judgment and gratitude they can't coexist.
Mm-hmm.
They're dualities,
Mm,
it's one or the other. So when you're in a true frequency of gratitude, you magically kind of extrapolate the lessons or extract the lessons from whatever that period of your life was. And this can be a really helpful exercise for anything. You can write a letter to money if you have money blocks, right? Writing a letter to money from a place of gratitude. That's a big one. Writing a letter to a past, work colleague or friend that maybe you had some like tension with, or maybe it's a
mm.
job, whatever it is, it's like that does end up being a really powerful exercise, especially when you allow yourself
Ugh.
the act of writing really allows you to get your thoughts to let them like
Just
flow
flow
onto the
out and
page.
into the universe. I think like that's such a
Yes,
powerful thing is like out of your
it
like it
is.
becomes real when you put it on paper. And if it's a fear
Yes.
or a shame or a doubt, like it holds that much less power on you. At
Yes.
least is what I have experienced. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off
Yes.
there.
No, you didn't. You added to that. That was
Mm,
beautiful because it does create what I like to call psychological distance
mm,
because we don't realize how much like we live
that's a good one.
as humans in our minds a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like we're at
Oh my
least in the
God, yeah.
Western world, right? Most of us are living up
You
here
kidding
in our
me? Yeah.
heads.
Uh-huh.
And the huge missed opportunity in my opinion, and this is something that I really took from, many, many years of yoga practice is like how much wisdom lives in our bodies.
Mm,
And I only just started actually integrating this
mm,
into my life in the last 2 years, where, for example, writing that resignation letter, I felt it in
mm,
my body.
mm-hmm.
It didn't quite make sense to my mind, but I started to listen to the body. And that's when you start to realize, holy shit, my body knows what's up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why nervous system regulation is so important because our bodies can also be really confused if we've been manipulating, abusing, or exploiting it and its energy and our nervous system. So, you said something before too about the inflection point and being at a crossroads where you're you're at the intersection. I always picture it in like a dirt road, like somewhere in the Midwest of the States or something. It's like you see tumbleweed.
I actually love that. And
Um,
it's like one long straight freaking road. Then
yeah,
it's like, all
yeah.
right, there is literally either go straight or take this
Oh my
left,
God.
tumbleweed, and then maybe some cows off
Yes.
in the distance.
Do you know what it makes me think of very specifically is the ending scene in Castaway. Where he's like
Oh
going to
yeah.
drop off the final FedEx package.
That's how I'm
And
always
there,
gonna think about these decisions now.
yes, I feel like there's a actual visual of that fork in the road.
Wow, that's
Anyway,
such a good one.
yeah,
Such a
I
good
don't,
one.
it's very clear in my mind right now.
Hmm.
And I think many people without realizing it, this is going to be such a stupid joke, but the walking pads that you can have underneath a standing desk.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I feel like a lot of people are standing on a walking pad at this dirt road, crossroad, whatever. And because they're moving, but they're not really moving, right? They're
Hmm.
walking on the walking pad. So they're not
They're
actually
moving but
moving,
nowhere.
but they're moving, but nowhere. And I think so many people are at this crossroads, but they've defaulted to the walking pad or the treadmill, however you want to think about it. And that is creating the illusion that you're moving forward, but you're not because you are at a place. The universe has told you it's probably sending you signs you are ready to make this
Hmm.
decision to go
Hmm.
left or right, whatever it is, whatever
Whoa.
feels right in your body or with your intuition. But you have allowed, or not you, but many people, and myself included for a lot of my life, you'll so easily default to this complacency, this ambivalence, complacency, especially where it's like, I'm good here. Something will happen where it's given to me and then I'll move.
Hmm.
But that's not how it works.
Mm.
Nothing changes if nothing changes. In fact, there's this like amazing quote that I only heard recently from Einstein. Okay. The quote is that, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher it. It's that nothing happens
Until
if nothing
something moves.
moves. Exactly.
I literally said that quote to my dad yesterday. I was like, no way is Jess going here with this. I can't believe you just
Yes.
said that.
I
Well, of
I
course I
wish
can
I could
believe it.
tell you where that came through. I don't know what I was listening to recently. I feel like I was listening rather than reading.
Hmm.
Isn't that it's like that is it?
It,
Obviously, we're here having this conversation. Thank you, universe,
yeah,
for the reminder. We're exactly where we're meant
it's
to
so
be. Yeah.
good.
Can you say it again?
Nothing happens until something moves. I
Yes.
always attributed that with sales, and it's like shit's not going to happen on these deals unless you pick up the phone and you call somebody and make the uncomfortable phone call, or do the
Yes.
the point of view, or you go above decision line, whatever, right? Like just
Yeah.
shit's not going to happen until you do some shit about it. This is
Yeah.
how I think about that. Yeah.
And then I love that you brought up sales just now because the amount of times I've said, if I had this level of awareness and wisdom and integrated like practice,
Hmm.
embodiment practice, if I had this when I was in sales, holy shit, I doubled my quota and made like a shit ton of money. It was great. Oh my God, I would have quadrupled and I would have
Yeah.
not been burnt out, which would have been so amazing. So I
Right.
don't want to, glaze over that point that sales is
Mm.
it's such a lucrative
Hmm.
career,
I've loved my
um,
career
or
in sales,
vocation, whatever.
and
Yeah,
it's
it's
just time.
incredible.
Just time to let go
You're
of some things.
you're also a pretty amazing personality for it because you
Mm.
are anchored and you are grounded. But I think especially for a lot of women in the field, we kind of are coming from a bit of a place of like needing to prove ourselves.
Mm.
And that's just generational traumas, right?
Hmm. Mm.
And that can just lead to totally, again, outsourcing your power to the sale. Whereas if you can
Mm.
stay and keep the power and hold the power and hold the frequency, the embodied frequency, and be like non attached, all the things, oh my God, that is where the sales are actually going to come.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
Like, I'm maybe not doing the best job of connecting those dots, but
I think so. I think at the end of it, like people, what I have learned in sales is if there's any lesson so many lessons, right? If I could boil one thing down that I could just never lose, is just to be your natural, authentic self.
that is it.
Just have a conversation like a
Yeah.
normal person because it's just you and another person, or a team or whatever. Like, yes, we're driving towards outcomes and solutions and adding value, all the things. At the end of the day, just freaking be, just be authentic and
Yes.
just be from your core is at least, what I'm interpreting from some of the things that you're saying that have resonated with me in the past as well.
Yeah, that
Hmm.
is the magnetism. That's
Hmm.
that's exactly what it
Ooh,
is. Yeah, it's when you are
yeah.
in your
Yeah.
authenticity,
It's a
right?
great way to put it.
There's no I feel like so many people, and again myself included, for a long time I was out of coherence. Like I was like trying to
Hmm.
be something, or trying to hold this
Mm.
mask together, whatever. Like I wasn't fully in alignment with who I really am at
Hmm.
my core. And when you are actually in alignment, it's like whoop,
Hmm.
and then you magnetize. That's what happens. You don't have to try so hard,
Right.
but we're so used to
It's easy.
trying so
Hmm.
hard because we have all this evidence to back up that when we push and we try and we work ourselves to burnout, look what happens. I have
Hmm.
good numbers.
Hmm.
But what
Hmm.
if that wasn't the only way?
Hmm.
What if you allowed yourself to be in your magnetism, which that's different for everyone?
Hmm.
Like for you as a self-projected projector, and for me as a sacral manifesting generator, are
Mm.
the natural magnetism very different.
Totally.
Like, right, you're the person who's like the natural guide. You're here to listen and like show people how to do things differently. Whereas I'm here to literally magnetize and do. As a
Hmm.
manifesting generator, I'm a doer. I am. That's just
Hmm.
that's why
Hmm.
also I do love working. I genuinely love working, but I need to have a boundary in place where I'm not overdoing it and I'm
Totally.
not totally draining myself in service of it. So it's magnetism. And
Mm.
I wish more people understood that you are your most magnetic when you are your fullest expression of your
Hmm.
authentic self.
Hmm.
You're not the person that you think you're supposed to be. You're not the person that you learned to be in grade school when you were bullied by so and so. And you're not the person who wears the masks of whatever. Like
Hmm.
the work to dismantle the masks is deep work. But when you do it, everything becomes so much easier.
Hmm.
So much easier. It's like, what if this actually gets to be easy? But we're addicted to this idea that it needs to be hard.
When I think the interesting part to it is we continuously, as we go through life, we find these pockets of that flow that you're alluding
Yeah.
to or the
Yeah.
ease, and it kind of sheds light on who we are because it's almost like
Yeah.
this self-discovery process of who are we, but who are we really? And then being able to actually go through life and those sorts of things, it will have a moment where it's like, oh shit, like that's me. But then also like holding that to be, and then how do I say that? I think becoming aware of those moments and then allowing those
Yeah.
moments to become more frequent until we can continue
Yes.
to align with like, oh shit, that's also who I am. And I'm always, because we're always evolving too. So
Yes.
it's like this interesting like ebb and flow of being in alignment, not being in alignment. How can we be in alignment more? And also just
Yeah.
like what feels right. And you mentioned like intuition and
Mm.
gut and sacral and all these things, and it can be the trickiest thing because oftentimes our head and our hearts will not be aligned. And,
Mm.
it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, but then when we actually go with our gut, then we'll get these reinforcements that,
Yeah.
oh shit, maybe this is the right thing. And I don't know, Jess, I think you have created such a safe space for me to share this because another thing that I've never shared
Mm.
before, just in the light of head and heart is, it was like I had like the hardest year of my entire life this past year.
Yeah.
And this was another, catalyst for this whole sabbatical one-way ticket and everything. And
Mm.
I ended up calling off my wedding and ending a long-term relationship with, you know, uh, an amazing person who I
Mm.
still love and will always have love for. And, it's just as like, I won't go into the details of it, but what I can say to be true that's relevant for the conversation here is my head was justifying everything all day. And my heart and my gut was like, it was like a physical manifestation of just
Yeah.
something isn't 100% right. And that again was enough, especially for something as big and powerful as a wedding and committal as a wedding. It was like, again, if it's not like a 100%, you know, commitment, then I should probably look into that. And it was like one of those things where I started working with a therapist and a coach, and he was, he brought it to my attention that a couple things that are very top of mind in regards to this is um, deep down. Those two words, when he said like
Mm.
deep down, you probably know, like those were the two words that hit me like right in my core. And I just felt so sick immediately because it felt like the truth.
Yeah.
And, like that truth holds deep within ourselves. And then, um, I lost my train of thought on the other one. Maybe it'll come back. But all
Mm.
that to be said is like for those listening, it's like just continuing to lean into what you intuitively feel more often,
Yeah.
even though it may not make total sense. Because it's also like you talk about the confirmation from the universe. There was I started thinking about the one-way ticket again, and that had always been top of mind
Yeah.
for me. And then this was happening, and same drill. Like it's like you didn't quit your job on the spot. Um, I was not going to go and just book a ticket, first
Mm-hmm.
thing, but it was like the seed was planted. Picked up some books that I started reading on
Mm-hmm.
sabbatical and the art of long-term travel and doing deep work or good work, and pathless path, like all these books that just was like in alignment with how I was thinking about my life. And then, it's like I had to move out of my house and put it up for rent and ended up having like I hired a property manager just thinking that okay, if I'm, going to go take this one-way ticket, like I want to be totally hands off so I can completely detach from everything and go on this self-exploration, self-discovery journey is how I was thinking about it. And I remember getting the call one day, long story short, everything happened super fast with getting both of the units rented out. And my property manager was like, dude,
Mm.
I'm just telling you right now, this never happens. So whatever you're doing, like you're on the right path. And it was just
Wow.
like one of those confirmation, that from the
Yeah.
universe that was like, holy shit. And it's sad too. Like I remember bawling my eyes out because it felt just like it was another part of continued letting go,
Yeah.
which was sad. Like I didn't want that to be true. Like we were talking about that earlier, right? About letting go of your old self, like the resignation letter. That's why I was in
Yeah.
tears. Like still have parts of me that just want to hold on to
Yeah.
that past life and that past relationship and past identity. And, there's so much heartbreak and pain. And like, it's been like, I didn't even want to get to a place of being ready to heal and grow and do all those things. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
just needed to feel and like emote and just do some very deep inner work. And, and then it's just like part of that whole letting go, though. I know that's kind of a jumble right there, but I just felt like it was
No, it's beautiful.
important to
It
touch
is.
on like head and heart alignment and
Yeah.
also that life is just, like those are the I don't even know where else to go with that other than like if I were to sum it up like making the hardest decision of my entire life
Yeah.
that went against everything that I wanted to do logically, but
Yeah.
intuitively felt like I don't know why, but this is the right thing. But then fast forward 9, 10 months, and here we are actually about to hop on a plane and go do this
Yeah.
thing that, I've always thought about. And with a total trajectory of life that is, unprecedented, uncertain, no idea where it's going, but like very aligned. And,
And
you
that
know, and
excites you.
it that part feels so good, and I'm very very excited for this next chapter, as I'm now finally ready to start stepping into this, a
Yeah.
new version of myself. Is probably how I
Yeah.
can best try to put it.
I love that you shared all of that. And I want to take a real moment to honor. Okay, my dad's pouring cereal over here. So feel free to
I love that's
feel free
life,
to,
right?
yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
I
My
love it.
wonderful dad.
Yeah, to
Love
bring
you,
light
dad.
to a situation, right? Like you talked about it earlier, Jess, like be like your inner childlike moments. I went and saw an energy healer last year, and she was amazing to work with, and she had me doing literal somersaults in there because she said
Yes.
somersault and fuck it were the two was the way that she put it. She's like, yo,
That
turn your world
that's
upside
a new
down,
quote.
do a somersault
Yes.
and fuck
Oh
it.
my God, turn it upside down.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, the best.
Oh, I love that so
Yeah.
much.
I remember just laughing my ass off doing somersaults in this like energy healing room. I was just bawling my
Yes.
eyes out 30 minutes ago, and now I'm doing somersaults and laughing my ass off. So that's it's pouring
Yeah.
cereal. That's life.
I do want to honor what you just shared, especially
Mm,
with your audience, because it takes a level of self awareness and mindfulness to be able to clock those moments. And I think that's something really worth celebrating for you because you've been on this journey, even
hmm
though you're thinking about Bali as this like big, you know, opening to this next chapter, but
hmm
you've been in this chapter for a while
100%.
now.
100%.
Yeah.
hmm
And the fact that you had that level, and I know that your like yoga is a big part of your like spiritual
It's
and
where I
movement
made
practice.
many decisions on the mat.
Yes. Right.
hmm
Because you are in your body.
hmm
And because yoga really promotes a space and a practice to bring bring spaciousness to our thoughts, right? We're not really in a state of judgment. We're not trying to push everything out. We're in
hmm
a state of observance and allowing. And then we're bringing our attention back to our bodies.
mm
And that's ultimately what you did in one of what could have been, what might be one of the most difficult decisions you ever make. So
hmm
you were able to bring that level of awareness and observation and then tune into your body. And, I think that's something that is such a gift. And the people who are able to cultivate that gift, and I hope that it's, more people than not, that is where true wisdom, that's where true wisdom is born. And I always I'm just going to share an analogy because it was present for me as you were speaking. Is that often I like to think of whenever buzzwords, okay, buzzwords in the personal development space,
hmm
abundance and
hmm
freedom. Okay,
hmm
abundance is a big one, and I
hmm
think manifestation it's very misunderstood, perhaps less misunderstood and more that there are a lot of like preconceptions around it.
hmm
But I like to think
hmm
of our capacity to hold all the things we truly desire: abundance, freedom, joy, peace, love, ease. Okay. Just as a
hmm
subset. And I picture it in like a bowl. And it's funny because I always think of it as a Tibetan singing bowl, like the beautiful, like brass, like a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit of it. Anyway, think of it as a bowl.
Okay.
And we desire these things, right? But we don't even realize that in our desire to feel safe and to fuel that, again, that illusion of safety, we fill up our bowl with all of these things, almost like a band-aid solution, right? And in your case, it could have been the illusion of like the long-term relationship and the steadiness that comes with that, or anything else.
hmm
For a lot of people, it's the safety of a job. It's the whatever brings the illusion of safety, money, food, hobbies, habits, whatever. We fill up this bowl, and then when we're looking to call in more, and when we're craving more, there's no room for it because we filled it up with all of this stuff.
Mm,
And actually, this is the biggest preconception, the biggest really thing that's misunderstood is that in order to call in more of what you actually want, you need to remove all this
mm,
stuff so that you
mhm,
have room to receive it. And so many of us are not willing to let go of those things that give us the illusion of safety. You know, you could think of it as a plush toy as a
mhm,
kid, like letting go of the teddy bear to go
mhm,
to bed. But really, for me, I think of this Tibetan singing bowl. And, you know, when we talk about embodiment practices and manifestation practices to call in quote unquote more, what that requires is not only that we remove the things that we've been cluttering our energetic field and our capacity, we've been cluttering the bowl with, we remove it. And then to expand, the bowl has to expand in all directions. It
mm,
doesn't expand just unilaterally toward
mhm,
abundance and freedom. It expands in all directions, meaning that your capacity to hold more of all the things you desire requires a capacity to hold the shadows that come with that.
mm,
And so, deeper sadness and deeper feelings of frustration and bitterness and anger. But the trick, or rather the truth, because it's not a trick, the truth is that all of us are here to experience the full spectrum of human emotions and to not identify with it. You are not your anger. You are not your sadness. You are not your grief. You get to feel those things,
mhm,
which I'm obsessed with what you said earlier about fully allowing yourself to feel and emote.
mm,
Because I mean, I'm sure you've heard this before. Emotions, energy, emotion. I actually love that like definition of an emotion, energy, emotion. Emotions physically, biologically don't last in our bodies typically for longer than 90 seconds. So with the way that our brains fire off like synapses, whatever we're
mhm,
reacting to our environment, the emotion of sadness or anger, frustration, whatever, they all manifest differently in our biological makeup. It's done. It has passed within 90 seconds. Any second longer that we spend in that emotion, and most many of us can spend days, weeks, even months, is our over identification with it. It's the stories that we tell ourselves about that emotion. But if you allow yourself to
mm,
fully feel it and move through you and you don't identify with it, great. You've expanded your capacity to feel that. But all to say, so many people who desire more are not going to be in a position to hold more until they also are willing to hold more of the darkness. I'm not saying you need to live in darkness to fully experience abundance. Actually, I kind of am because darkness and light, light cannot exist without the darkness.
mhm,
Again, these are the dualities that we kind of like have to be willing to experiment with. And this is where shadow work comes into play. And this is why inner work is fucking
mhm,
hard.
mhm.
You know, if it was easy, everyone would do it and everyone would be enlightened and we would all just be like abundant, peaceful. That's just, you know, it's work.
And I would like how I think about that concept is like in ones and tens, right? In order to
Mm,
truly like experience tens, it's almost in direct proportion to how we experience the ones, right?
yes.
In the sense of like, darkness and light, so to
Yeah.
speak, and then just like the general human experience.
Yeah.
Also, like that shit allows you to deeply connect with people on
Yes.
on a
The
very
right people.
personal level, the right people who, like if there's anything I have valued through this experience, it's the ability to just like go fucking deep with people on a
Yeah.
real level and truly empathize with other people and have like my heart hurt when I hear something that is,
Yeah.
resonates with a similar experience, and it's
Hmm.
like, you know, I would be lying if I said that I'm like, so fired up that this happened. Like that's the furthest thing from the truth. But I'm grateful for some of the things that have come from it, like genuine human connection with other
Yeah.
people, empathy, all the things. So thank you for allowing the space here. I think, if there's anything that I've learned through my time working with my therapist and coach, is like just having an intimate, safe space to
Hmm.
to hold these types of conversations is so powerful
Yeah.
and so needed in
Yeah.
in 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 life. And so
Yeah.
yeah. So with that, Jess, I freaking love this conversation. I feel like you and I could talk for weeks on end. I would say let's go ahead and we can dive into the final four questions. We can start
Yeah,
wrapping
sure.
wrapping things up. So the first one is something that I had a mentor ask me one time. I was actually it was like a career question that I was struggling with, and he asked me. He was like, "What would the question has now changed?" He told me, "What would 65-year-old Colin
Yeah.
say to you in this situation?" I've changed it to 85, as I did have a
Mhm.
guest one time who was pretty close to close,
Love
close.
that.
She's like,
Love
"Well, it might
that.
need to be 85," and I'm like, "Shit, all right, we'll just revise it." So just to you with where you're at right now in your life, however this means to you, what would 85-year-old Jessica say to you?
Mm. Yeah, I think about this often. I
Mm,
think she would say, I love you.
mm,
I'm so grateful for everything that you are moving through right now. Just know that you are on your path and that the greatest work you will ever do is to live in your purpose and guide others toward theirs.
wow.
And just like, do not give up
I freaking
because,
love
yeah.
this. Mm,
I like to think my 85-year-old self is like, I'm
hmm
so fucking grateful. You made me a rich bitch. Thank
mm.
you.
Rich in so many different
Rich in
avenues.
so many different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I love that. Second question is, what's the number one book that you recommend to others? Meaning, like if you had to gift it to somebody,
Yeah.
which book are you gifting the most?
Mm. Oh my gosh, I gift books all the time. Well,
It's the best.
we talked about it. We talked about The Artist's Way quite a bit
Oh
during this
yeah.
conversation.
I was wondering.
I think I think that would be it because
hmm
so The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
hmm
Um because everyone has an inner artist.
mm
Everyone has an artist within. And I think it just has so many sneaky little like spiritual growth practices
mm.
and practices that have like really impacted me. So yeah, I think I would gift The Artist's Way. If can I give a second one?
For sure.
The second one that's always on my nightstand, I didn't travel with it this time, is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I feel like it's just such a good, you'll get something out of it no matter where you are in your journey. It's
Right.
one of
Just
those
pick it
books
up.
where exactly
hmm
you'll understand the things you're meant to understand and then reread it, 5 years later and then like, yeah, holy shit, I didn't even
hmm
pick this up. But I
hmm
find that it's an excellent book for anyone who's interested in mindfulness, but who's maybe struggling to create like a consistent practice. It really helped deepen. And it's not even a mindfulness or meditation book, but it really helped me deepen my practice.
I
Yeah.
mean, the both of those books combined is ultimately how I'm seeing. It's like, man, what a powerful impact to get you to where you are right now. Also,
Yeah.
because it's like the artist's
Yeah.
way. I was also curious when you took that book to Europe. How did you find that book? Did somebody recommend it? Did you find it?
Yeah.
And how did
My
that come about?
mentor. Yeah,
Okay,
one of my mentors,
nice.
she was actually my boss at the time
Okay.
and
Oh wow.
very
Oh
spiritually
wow.
connected.
Little did she know
Yeah.
this book was gonna
She knew. I think
yeah.
she knew. Yeah.
And that's what I
And
love. Like
yeah.
at the end of the day, I've heard you talk about it. It's like even on like sales calls and stuff, it's fun to just talk about some real shit with people. And then of course we're talking about work and stuff, but it's like
Yeah.
she knew. And same
Oh
same
my
with like
God.
all the response I got from, my current and like all the, like my boss and our CRO, CEO, nothing, everything after I put a notice has been nothing but the most supportive
That's
response
incredible.
that you could ever have hoped for. And it's like,
Yeah.
I just believe that when you follow the right people, good things are going to happen and things are going to work out. Yeah.
Totally agree.
I
Yeah.
love to hear that.
Mhm.
Cool. Third question here is what's a bucket list item for you here, Jess, that sets your soul on fire when you think about it?
Oh, so
Oh,
many,
I
so
know.
many. But you know what's funny? I wasn't expecting this one to come up.
Mm,
And it did. So I'll just share the first answer that came
cool.
through is climbing Mount Kilimanjaro with my
Ooh,
husband.
dope.
Yeah.
Did you ever
I
see it when you were in
have
Africa, or I don't know
no,
where
I
Ghana
didn't.
is in
No,
in relation?
it's in Tanzania and
Oh yeah.
I have been to South Africa. But yeah, which is far away. I don't think I ever saw it out of the plane window either. Maybe did I see it on my way to Ethiopia? Maybe. No, I don't think I've ever seen it in person. I have just like a weird love affair with Africa. I just want to go and
Mm,
explore so much of that continent. And my husband's never been.
mm.
So I feel like Mount Kilimanjaro would be a dope
That'd be
adventure.
sick.
Yeah,
Fuck
paired
yeah.
with maybe some like volunteering in the area. Yeah, that's a bucket list item that just like came alive for me when you
I
asked the question.
I'm
So,
wondering if it's because I've literally had two people on the show that have climbed Kilimanjaro and they've
oh,
literally talked
really?
about it. So it sounds like you need to be the third here. Is
Okay,
yeah, it's
amazing.
just
Send me
like
those episodes.
I actually studied abroad in Cusco, Peru, and back in college. And my old roommate, him and I caught up, and then I brought him on the podcast and to talk about climbing Kilimanjaro because he went and did it. And then I had another guy in sales who was like super passionate about hiking. He just went and he had climbed it. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'll send the
amazing.
yeah. So
I love that. I
there you
feel like
go.
it would be
Seeds
a very
planted.
meditative experience. Yeah, and I love that you keep saying seeds planting. You do just the perfect title for this podcast, Seeds of Success.
I
Yeah.
just
The
never knew
other
what
one,
to call it. Yeah,
I
go ahead.
love it. The other one for me, I'll say it because I said a second book is doing a 10-day Vipassana retreat, a silent meditation retreat
What is it
for
called?
10 days.
Vipassana?
Vipassana
Vipassana.
meditation.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a style of meditation and the intro retreat is 10 days, which I wanted to do one 2 years ago and I let someone talk me out of it. And
wow.
I'm realizing so much that like when I know I want to do something, I
Mm,
don't need to socialize the decision.
no.
And I was ready 2 years ago and I'm ready now.
Hmm.
So I'll do it. I will do it eventually. Yeah, yeah, it's a big one because the woman who talked me out of it was like basically told me, it's like having open heart and open brain surgery without anesthetic. And that was enough for me to be like, ooh, maybe I'm not ready.
What? That is a wild
Aggressive.
way to, that's very aggressive. That's
I
probably the best
know.
word for it. That's
I
very
know.
aggressive. So has she ever done one?
Yeah, she had done
Oh
many.
shit. Okay.
Yeah, at the time I was only meditating like 20 minutes a day and she's like, "Yeah,
Mm.
you might want to up that to an hour to 2 hours a day." And I did. And
Yeah.
like now
Yeah.
I'm like I meditate quite frequently. Sometimes for an hour, but often in smaller like
Hmm.
bursts. But anyway, all to say, yeah,
And
maybe I
also
shouldn't
it's
have
like
said that.
half the time, like when you like it probably just also showed you that wow, that is something that I do really want to do. Like saying no to it
Exactly.
almost built like a bigger desire. And maybe like at that point, maybe you're just a little bit more suited for it now, or it'll be a better
You're totally
experience. Like
right.
you never know.
There,
Um,
you know what? 100%. Because I
yeah,
say I was ready back then. No, I don't know that I was. I
yeah,
feel like I'm a whole different level of embodiment now. So,
yeah.
yeah, I think
And
you're
there's
right.
always something to be said about like, yes, jump in when you're not ready and do things and you'll
Yeah,
learn as you go. There's also like yes, but and in order to like fully get like a transformative experience, it's sometimes nice to like do the extra work to go and
yeah,
create a better experience. Kind of like how I'm
yeah,
thinking about, my trip around the world right now is I'd always had wanted to do a gap year after college and I never did. I just jumped straight into work and coaching and all these things. And I always like I don't live with any regret. Like there are lessons to be learned, I believe, and you're always like going through experiences and maybe I will do things differently in the future. That being said, like always was like, damn, I wish I would have done that gap year. But it's like maybe I wasn't ready to go and experience the world how
yeah,
I am now and how I, want to go see this thing through and with the financial foundation to actually go and like truly, do this thing.
100%.
So just a touch base on that.
Yeah.
All right. So the final question here is what is a quote that you live by?
Yeah, I love this. I read a lot and I highlight a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh yeah,
this one's hard for me because I'm constantly like assimilating
I get
new
it.
things. But if I had to choose one, I feel like it would come from Eckhart Tolle,
Mm,
who I just resonate with so many of his teachings. And, I love how he makes deeply spiritual topics very accessible to
mm,
like the lay person
mm-hmm.
while also still being like deep and meaningful to someone with
Totally.
an advanced spiritual practice, which I
Mm,
would consider myself more of a layperson than the latter. But yeah, simple. The present moment is all that we have. Literally. That's
mm,
it. The present moment is all that we have. It's just a reminder that, you know, the mind loves to spend time and energy in ruminating on the past and projecting into the future. And often, it's great if you're daydreaming about beautiful things in the future, but
Mm,
often, like, anxiety is projecting worst case scenarios into the future.
mhm,
Rarely, truly, rarely are we fully present right here, right now, not thinking about what's going to be for dinner or
mm,
how much money, what's my raise going to be in 6 months or whatever. Um, yeah. So the present moment and just being fully here and paying attention.
mm,
We've talked so much about synchronicities in our conversation today, Colin. Like
mhm,
synchronicities and signs are all around us all the time.
mhm,
It's just, are we present enough to see them?
mhm.
Like, are we paying attention? And the reminder of just the present is literally all that we have. Just to come back to that. I come back to that as many times as possible in a day. And I get lost a lot. So I
Getting
get
lost is a good
distracted.
thing. Have
Yeah.
have you seen this is super silly, but have you seen the show The White Lotus?
I when you said upside down doing somersaults, I immediately thought of a scene I saw in the second episode last night. I'm not caught up on season 2 yet,
Okay.
but yes, I'm a fan.
It's so good. I'm in season 3 right now. I
Yeah.
finished season 2 and I'm like, all right, you're only allowed the first episode of season 3. And then you're like, we're wrapping
Yeah.
things up and closing out the week right. But they're at this, I won't spoil anything, but like it's based in Thailand for season 3.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
this wellness retreat. And they are supposed to put their phones in this
Yes, I saw
bin.
this episode. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm like, God, I want that. I'm like
Yeah.
on this. So it's
Yeah.
like all these things. I have ideas like for this trip and one way ticket, and I'm again kind of like to your point earlier to create space for the Tibetan bowl. Like I have removed freaking everything that I can think out of it,
Mm.
even including fantasy football. Like I'm like, dude, that's freaking gone. Like all these commitments, obviously there's
Yeah.
drastically bigger commitment, but like just creating space to allow myself to abundance, freedom, kind of those hot topic trigger words. But, you know, at the core is like just creating the space in the room to allow myself, to be open to like whatever comes my way. Point being like, if something like, whatever retreat comes about, like I'm open to it,
Hmm.
maybe I do it, maybe I don't. But anyways, I'm getting a little long winded in saying that, but I just thought it,
We
it
love
was, it
it.
was, it was cool. Yeah.
Love it.
So,
Yeah.
well, Jess, we'll go ahead and wrap things. It's been such a phenomenal conversation. And last point that I'll make from something that you said on your podcast was that I just totally resonate with is I learned so much during conversations. And
Mm.
it's kind of like the soil to the seed that is planted as you put it. And
Yeah.
it's like I just so fully resonate. Like clarity comes through conversations and like the
Hmm.
outspoken word, at least in, our own, sounds like for you and I, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not for others, like manifest in different
Mm.
ways. But so thank you for coming on the
Yeah.
show and sharing
Likewise.
your vulnerabilities and just being super real. Where can people find you and how can they get in touch with you? And yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I think this
Yeah,
is
of
a
course.
testament of being in authenticity and magnetizing the people
Totally.
that you're meant to. Yeah, so I post frequently on LinkedIn. That was the first that was the first platform I built my business on.
Good for you.
Because I work with a lot of women in corporate in a sales and marketing setting. So
Hmm.
I post frequently on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. I'm on Instagram at Coach Jess O'Kane. And my podcast is Purpose Uprising. You can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts.
New episode dropping this week.
That's
Season
right.
2.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And like that speaks to the power of conversation because when you and I were prepping for this and we chatted last week and also went way over time, classic, that really was the inspiration that I needed. The clarity that I
Hmm.
needed to talk through was
Hmm.
reviving my podcast
Hmm.
and finally launching this retreat that I'm launching my very first international retreat in southern France in September
Gosh,
that
that
I'm
fires me up.
very excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I
Good for
always
you.
pictured how would I integrate yoga into my coaching practice? And,
Mm-hmm.
it finds its sneaky ways
Mm-hmm.
into my coaching methodology. And I've always wanted to hold like a space or a real experience where yoga, right? The the movement practice, the somatic releases,
Mm-hmm.
meditation, and really the whole point is coming home to. And I love that we spent so much time talking about who are you really, because
Mm-hmm.
that's home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll be doing that in September. And you can follow me on any of the channels that I just shared. I'll be talking about it there. But yeah.
So do you have do you already have people, like, are you fully booked up, or what if somebody wants to join, and
Yeah.
what if they want to
So
come on the retreat?
this is kind of a pre-launch that I'm like, this is the first forum that I'm really talking about it with
Hell
a
yeah.
date. So I'm in pre-launch right now. If you're interested, I mean, know that this is being created by someone who has walked the linear corporate, like,
Mm-hmm.
what am I trying to say? Like climbed the corporate ladder. And, a lot of people think that working with me requires, or that there's an expectation that they need to quit their jobs. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
That was part of my journey. But
Mm-hmm.
when people work with me, they're not following my path. They're
Mm-hmm.
discovering their own.
Totally.
So this is coming from someone who I wished there was a place that I could go that was specifically for like to heal burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I would take anything that was a burnout solution. But now I know that healing burnout is just a symptom, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a symptom of misalignment. And
Mm-hmm.
so this whole point of this retreat is to come home to yourself and find
Mm-hmm.
what does that alignment actually feel like for you?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if anyone's interested, you
Mm-hmm.
can like send me an email, jessica@jessicaokane.com.
Love it.
um, yeah, I also have a 2-day intensive that I'm launching at the end of March, for women only. It's called Cash Flow and Confidence. And it's specifically
Oh.
going to be focused on the mindset and the game plan on how to start owning at least one of your revenue streams.
Mm.
This is what I wish I had when I was in corporate. I didn't start charging for coaching until like after I started my business really from a blank slate. And I wish I had started planting the seeds
Mm.
and like opening the gates to receiving money on my own terms while I was in corporate. That was something I was deeply in resistance to, and it came from a worthiness wound. So that is a 2-day intensive happening in the next couple of weeks that anyone can jump into as well. I can even hold like a special rate for anyone who listened to this podcast. So you can just email me with saying that you heard this episode, and we'll get you in
Cool.
for a lower rate. Yeah.
That's awesome. Congrats on
Amazing.
everything you have going on.
Thank you.
Magnetism is my new favorite word after today.
Yeah.
Alignment, authenticity, all those things. Amazing. You used the word expansive and transmission of truth the last time we spoke. I loved
Yeah.
those. Magnetism for everyone
Yeah.
listening. That's what we're walking away with today. So, Jess, thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to have you, and wish you the best with everything. And here we go, France, coming soon enough.
Thanks, Colin. Merci. Thank you for having me, Colin. I'm
You're
sure
very
this won't be the
welcome.
last time we connect.
I have no doubt about it.
No doubt.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. If you got to the end of this episode, can you please do me a huge favor and leave a 5-star rating and review? This helps me be able to reach out to bigger guests and also be able to get access to special events and activities that otherwise would not be possible without your support. So if you could please take just 3 seconds and leave a 5-star rating and review, it would mean the world to me, and I will see you on the next episode.